This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Moto 360. This is the latest Android Wear smartwatch, the first one with a round display, and we're going to look at it now. So here it is, finally, the Moto 360 watch. It's a little hard to keep the screen on unless you're actually interacting with it. We actually have it in always on mode, which obviously really isn't always on. It just dims the screen a whole lot into a kind of monochrome. You might be able to see it in the dark kind of thing a little bit better. But just want to give you an idea of what it looks like on the wrist, especially, especially for you ladies. I'm almost 6 feet tall and I have pretty decent bone structure, so this would look about the same on a small to medium sized guy's wrist probably too. It's a big watch, 1.8 inches. However, it is still one of the more stylish, if not the most stylish, of smartwatches currently on the market. Well, the Pebble Steel, that one's not bad looking either, but it's round like most watches are. That stands in its favor. It comes with a Horween leather strap, and your choice of either black or gray. If you get the black one, it comes with the black stainless steel casing here. If you get the dark gray one, it comes with a standard stainless steel kind of ring around here. That's also nice. Instead of the cheesy kind of plastic smartwatches we've seen, or the mix of some metal with plastic band like we get from Samsung on some of their smartwatches, stainless steel here, Gorilla Glass 3, makes it pretty darn sturdy, which is nice, and make it look, well, more like a nice watch and not like one of those Casio calculator watches from 1999. Still, it's big. It's 11 millimeters thick, which is about 1/3 of an inch. That's as thick as, well, your Android smartphone these days, and some tablets even. And just to give you an idea, here it is, my Samsung phone, right next to it, right? So think of it as being awfully thick for a watch. It's not uncomfortable, though. Being round helps. There's no corners to gouge into you. One thing, if you're like me anyway, I kind of swing my arms close to the door frame. I'm used to how much clearance I have even wearing a standard watch. I clunked this into a couple of door jams already, so you got to get used to having an extra kind of thickness on your wrist. Happily, again, it is sturdy. It has a nice bevel glass edge over here. However, you can notice some light refraction on it, almost like jagged stair casing. I don't know why. It feels very smooth. It doesn't feel rough in the least bit, but that's just a minor complaint on the watch. The only control on this is the one button. I'm wearing it in my right hand because I'm left-handed. It would be more convenient probably for most people to have on the opposite side. It would be if it was on my other hand, obviously. And that one, well, if you press and hold it long enough, it will power it off. Thank goodness for that feature, because the first night that I had it charging on the nice Qi inductive charging cradle it comes with, and it was pretty darn frozen. It wouldn't do a darn thing. So I had to keep pressing and holding and pressing and holding, and finally it turned off and rebooted the watch. It's running Android Wear. That's the operating system. Android Wear feels kind of beta right now, so that gets into it. The watch has frozen on me a couple of times in the week or so that we've had it, and sometimes it gets sluggish. Now, this guy has a TI OMAP 3 processor in it, and those of you who've followed smartphones for a while know that's like a positively ancient CPU when it comes to smartphones, but hey, it's a smartwatch. It doesn't need as much processing power. The competitors for this watch, which would be the LG G Watch and the Samsung Gear Live, also running Android Wear, have a quad-core Snapdragon inside, Snapdragon 400, so a lot more processing power. This guy would be the slower one on the block. Again, it's a watch. I do notice occasional little bit of lag, especially if I'm doing a lot of voice input on it, but nothing I would complain about that much. Like those other watches, it has 512 megs of RAM and 4 gigs of storage. The 4 gigs of storage, you put apps on here which are really widget extensions from apps that you put on your Android smartphone. So how much storage you really need? This isn't like Samsung's Tizen watches, which this has actually made me appreciate a little bit more, because those have things like standalone Mp3 Player features, and you can put photos on here and use it as a little mini gallery and all that sort of thing. This doesn't do that. So you're not going to run out of storage anytime soon on this. Now, for a little size perspective, especially for you women out here, this is a Moto watch, and size typically made more for women than for men. So you get the idea of the difference. It's not just the thickness, it's the overall size. If I put this on my wrist, well, it looks normal. So you get the idea. Now, you guys who are used to wearing those big watches, especially the ones that have the multiple dials on them and all that kind of thing, you'll be more at home with this guy. The watch band is super duper long right here, so you've got plenty of holes to work with. It's just a standard kind of normal clasp, and it has a movable second strap retainer, which is a good thing because I wear it mostly all the way closed. It's obviously probably more geared towards men, so you have a lot of strap length. So, you know, it's the usual kind of watch in this way. It works that way. So this is actually slidable, which is good. So if you have a lot of tail hanging off, you won't be tempted to cut your nice Horween leather band. Keeps it in place pretty well. It's a very nice band, nice soft touch kind of thing. And not something I would want to wear for exercise because the soft suede leather on the inside can get kind of pasty and icky, and you just feel bad about messing up the leather watch. You can take the watch band off. Motorola suggests you take it to a jeweler to do that, and it's not the world's easiest thing to get off. It's not that slide lock, unlock kind of thing like we saw on the Apple Watch. One thing this has in favor compared to the Apple Watch is it's actually available. Moto 360 at launch was barely available. 2 weeks later, it's starting to trickle into stores, and it's finally available on Moto's website, so you can get one. It is $250. And like most smartwatches, with Samsung's Tizen watches being something of an exception there, it's really an expensive extension to your smartphone. This does just about nothing other than tell the time, keep track of your heart rate, and the steps that you've taken unless you've paired it with an Android watch. Now it works with Android smartphones running Android 4.3 or later. Doesn't matter what brand, so that's good. If you're looking at Samsung's Tizen watches, for example, you have to use one of their phones, which can be a limitation. Obviously with the Apple Watch, you're going to have to use it with an iPhone if you want to use all the nifty great features on it. So this works with any Android phone running 4.3 or later. All the data is handled by your phone, actually, and this is just a screen. Think of it as a second display for your phone. It is not even a second speaker. Unlike, again, Samsung's watches that have speakers built in so you can use the MP3 player and really annoy your friends or actually take and receive phone calls using the watch. No speaker here. That means if you have it sitting beside your bed and you want it to go bing, 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 it's time to get up, Joe, it won't bing, bing, bing. It can vibrate. And it's a very subtle vibrate, which is very nice when you have it on. It's not like some of the smartwatches that, oh my God, you think you've just been minorly electrocuted or something. But at the same time, the vibrate is subtle enough that you probably, if you're a heavy sleeper, are going to miss it on the inductive cradle. Speaking of the inductive cradle, we'll show you that now. So here it is. Comes in the box. Nice soft touch finish. You just kind of want to pet it. I know, that's creepy, right? But it comes with the charger too. It's just a micro USB connection right there. In a pinch, you could certainly use your smartphone charger instead. And unlike some of those real fiddly and complex chargers that Samsung has come with a clip on the back of the phone and you just want to tie your toes in pretzel shapes trying to get something that coordinated done, just drop that on there. Standard Qi charging, and as you can see, it turns into a desk clock, and it shows you the charging percentage, and then it dims right out. So if it's dark, you can still see that. I know you can see it faintly on the screen right now. At night, it's actually more effective, so it does work on the nightstand as a very subtle, shall we say, never going to glare in your eyes, night clock. Another nice thing about this watch is it has an ambient light sensor, which you don't usually see on watches. So if you actually check the time when you're in the movie theater, you're not going to get a whole lot of, growls and annoyances from folks because the thing is so darn bright. Or if you look at it in the night yourself, pick it up and look at it. It's pretty good and it adjusts pretty quickly to the ambient lighting. Likewise, outside, this AMOLED display is very viewable outdoors. Speaking of charging and battery life, you are going to want to drop it in its cradle every night. I know there have been some other reviews out there that said the battery life was absolutely abysmal. A few people said, hey, well, it's not that bad. It's somewhere in between. The story is there are two display modes. Like I said, there's one where the display is always on or active, as they call it, which, as you can see, is really not very bright. But with that, I could not possibly make it through the day, and I was not getting a whole lot of email notifications or appointments, things like that on it that would be really keeping it a whole lot busy. I wasn't even using it for GPSing or something like that. If you do have it and the screen goes off when you're not using it mode, then you have to do the typical pull your wrist up to your face kind of motion to get the display to turn on. It made it through to about 8 o'clock every night as we're getting up and putting it on at 7 a.m. in the morning. So battery life from the 300 milliamp battery inside is not a strong point with this guy. Thank God charging is actually an easy and pleasant affair. But for those of you who do actually pick up the watch and hold it to your face, turn the display on a lot and use it, it's going to be a little tough. Now, smartwatches so far have not had the greatest battery life. The Samsung Gear 2 that runs Tizen, maybe 2 days for that guy. 3 if you hardly use it, but probably you're a geeky watch enthusiast, if you did go ahead and buy one, you probably are using it. And Apple hasn't said anything about battery life with the Apple Watch yet, so we don't know. But so far, that's the cost of having a little mini computer on your wrist. Not much room for battery. I mean, these things are big enough already, so they just don't have a whole lot of stamina. Now, the Pebble Steel and the Pebble Watch, they get away with much better battery life for those of you who are cross-shopping on platforms because they use an e-ink display. It's a very basic grayscale display, lower resolution, doesn't use any power except for when it refreshes, so that can be a lot more efficient. And also, it relies on pretty healthy app stores available on Android and iOS, and those apps are doing most of the work, not the watch. So that can actually last about 5 days on a charge. Of course, the Pebble does not have a touchscreen. It doesn't have a color display, all that sort of stuff. So there are trade-offs there. So here's the display itself. A bunch of different watch faces you can choose, as you saw right there. And again, we can wiggle it around, try to wake it up again. Or not. And there's a notification if I want to see that. There's a meeting notification right there. For those of you who use Android, and you probably do if you're interested in Android Watch, well, it uses the Google Now card system to let you know what's going on right there, and it goes to sleep again pretty quickly. And then you can get things like the weather here. Now, the thing about these cards is it's pretty random as to what shows up and where. If you have a meeting upcoming like the one you just saw right there, well, that one's going to be pretty obviously and persistently on the watch. You can swipe left to get directions. I don't really know why it's giving me directions right now. We're already in our home office. You get the weather there. Sometimes when I first got the watch, it was dying to tell me about the Red Sox, and the Red Sox weren't even playing that day. So all it was doing was telling me what the next game would be, and then if I continued to peruse it, it told me how much they lost by the day before. Poor Red Sox. That's one of my complaints with this. I would really like to be able to have a selection of cards at my fingertips and to be able to scroll through them consistently. I have an email I haven't read here that, well, it's actually from me, imagine that I can read. And let's see how that works. If you tap on it, you can scroll and scroll and scroll, and then it's switching to the next message there, so I have to tap some more. So you have to keep tapping. But you could read the whole message on here, which is pretty neat, and compared to some smartwatches we've seen where you get the subject and maybe the first line, you can actually go through and get the entire message eventually. And it's managing to fit on the round screen pretty well. And there's another email right there. And if you want to get more information or do something else with it, here's my option. I can archive, I can reply. Reply is canned replies. That was a great message. Thanks for sending it. And I'm going to cancel sending that, but you can also, as you see, use voice to reply. Same thing goes with SMS text messages too. And you can open the message on the phone. So you don't actually have to go to the phone and futz and find your Gmail application, your email application. So that's pretty handy. Now there are other applications where, well, on the watch, if you really want to see more, that's it. And once you're done looking at those things, there's no real way to get them back. Once the cards have disappeared from the front face right here, there's no hope. So it's for in-the-moment notifications. That's one thing I don't like. I really want to be able to get stuff just by a couple of swipes. Because your other alternative, which is, to some of you, really neat, is to talk to the watch. Now, talking to the watch, besides the fact you're going to look like Maxwell Smart, isn't always practical. Say you're in a meeting, you're in the library, you're at school, any of those things, your spouse is asleep in bed, you don't want to be having little chit-chats with your watch, do you? So I think there need to be more touch alternatives to input. That said, if you want to talk to the watch, you can simply wake it up by bringing it up to your mouth, and hopefully it'll wake up, and it may not want to wake up right now. Okay, Google, settings. 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 Not so good there. Okay, Google. Settings. Settings. Well, that was a bit of work just to get to settings. And often, Google voice commands work really well, just as they do in Android phones. But once in a while, the watch kind of loses it, and rebooting it can help that. So here's settings. You can adjust the brightness. And let's do that. And it's on auto right now, so we want to go with maximum brightness. Let's do that so it looks really nifty on our camera. Or we can go one step down, which is about where it was, so that looks good. That way to clear it, and there's a little lag there. Ambient screen on and off, and that controls whether the screen actually goes off completely or not. We've got airplane mode, and we've got power off. So pretty basic settings there. And if you want to change the watch faces, one of the things that's really nice about this is watch faces. I like this watch face quite a bit. You've got 2 world clocks embedded right there. Now, waking up, notice this little black thing here? It's a flat tire. That's why the resolution of the LCD display is 1.56 inches for the display itself, by the way. The casing, of course, it makes it a little bit bigger than that, 1.8 inches or so. Anyway, it looks like a flat tire because 320 by 290 pixels. They couldn't fit all of the circuitry required to run the watch without making either a bigger bezel or a thicker watch, so you always got that little black spot down at the bottom. Press and hold, and you can choose other watch faces, and really a nice, tasteful selection of watch faces. There's the very minimal Movado style one right there. There's the happy blue sky forever. Right there, we've got a chronometer, digital watch for you digital types. This one right here, which I think probably would confuse a hell of a lot of people. And this one is the only one that shows the date right there, which I think is actually pretty handy to have the date. So let's switch to that one. So we just tap on it, and there's our new watch face. Now, unlike the Tizen Gear watches we reviewed, the Gear 2, originally the Gear actually was running Android, not Android Wear, but it got converted to Tizen OS. There's no set of icons in here. There's no applications to launch. There's no MP3 player. There's no video player. You can actually deal with calls that are incoming. You'll get a notification on the watch, and you can swipe the green ball to answer a call, swipe the red ball to reject the call. But if you do answer the call, you better run and grab your smartphone or have your Bluetooth headset already on, because you actually are going to be carrying on the conversation using your phone, not your watch. So in that way, this is sort of like the Pebble watch for people who want a touch screen, a colored display. It's a very passive notification system, pretty much what the Pebble watch is there. The app ecosystem, we'll show you the apps that are available. Android Wear is still very new, so we hope to see more of those. This is not for those folks out there who actually like the Samsung Gear 2, the Gear 2 Neo, and the Tizen apps on there, and things like having an MP3 player in your watch or having a phone conversation with your watch. Now, to get the most out of your Moto 360 or any Android Wear watch, you need to download the Android Wear app on your smartphone. Right here we're using a Samsung Galaxy S5. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, Android 4.3 or newer. This is brand agnostic. So you get a lovely picture there of your phone. You can connect or disconnect, of your watch rather. You can connect or disconnect using that tiny icon there. You can choose what applications of those available handle a given task, like setting a timer is handled by the clock. That makes sense. Agenda is for clock. Fitness thing, I've got Runkeeper installed, so I can actually use Runkeeper with this, show my heart rate. We're using the Moto 360's built-in heart rate monitor. Take a note, works with Google Keep. I have Evernote on here. It has not shown up as an option, which is a shame. I would love absolutely to be able to use Evernote instead of Keep. Not that I have much against Keep. It's not as full-featured, but the way Google kind of experiments and gives you apps and takes them away every once in a while, I'm not sure if Google Keep is going to be a keeper and what I'll have to do with my notes if they take that away. So, that's the basic stuff there, and there's your settings right there. You can mute app notifications. So by app, you can choose if you don't want to be nagged by Candy Crush or something like that, you can turn those off. Now within, you can't get too granular, like with Gmail. You can't pick what sort of things you're getting. Only from some people you get notifications, not from others. It's only the application that gives notifications by vibrating on the watch or not. You can hide cards on the dimmed screen if you'd rather just see the watch. Silence a connected phone. If you just want the watch to vibrate and you don't want your phone to go bing bong and all that sort of stuff, that can be handy in meetings. Debugging over Bluetooth, that's for developers obviously, and resyncing your apps. Now what if you want to add more apps to the watch? You click that little link or tap that little link, and here are the Android Wear apps that are currently available. Not a whole lot of exciting stuff just yet. Groupon there for you Groupon people, that's kind of nice. As you saw, we had Runkeeper installed. Got health tap, true. WhatsApp, I know a lot of you are going to be excited by that. Facebook messaging, that's the beginning of the end there. You'll never be left alone. There's a couple of other social networking ones. Some of them are actually pay for. I would like to see first-party ones that are free instead. And there are features also on the watch where you can use the watch to find your phone or use the phone to find your watch, which is pretty handy too. Not a lot of killer apps yet, but this is a brand new and, like I said, very beta feeling experience right now. A year from now, it could be really great. And automatically what this is going to do is going to put the app on your phone, and it's going to send the companion app to your watch. So it all works. Basically, the processing power mostly happens on the watch, on the phone. The phone is going to send the data to the watch. It's just a passive consumer of stuff. Alternatively, but you don't have to do it, Motorola has their Connect app. And there we have that. And if we tap on it, you can see where your watch was last seen. You can choose to set your watch faces over here and set a wellness profile, which is just very basic stuff like your height and your weight. And so we can actually switch the watch faces right here if we want instead. So pretty basic stuff right there. If you happen to have a Motorola phone, you can have, I would like to call it the circle of trust. You can have it so that when the phone is in range of the watch, that if you usually use a pin to unlock the phone, you don't have to use the pin. Once the phone is more than approximately 30 feet, which is Bluetooth range, from the watch, then you have to enter your PIN to unlock your phone. That's the way you've chosen to roll security-wise with your phone. What's my heart rate? So there you have it. Fitness, and it's always keeping a tab on your heart rate. Now, as a heart rate monitor function goes, I think a lot of people who are pretty fit already know how to take their own pulse or feel it pretty instinctively. I mean, you can put two fingers to your neck, you can put them on your wrist, you just know how your heart feels. But nonetheless, there it is. After yelling commands of this for a while, my heart rate's a little higher than usual, but you can swipe and get, well, how much you've been active, inactive. Now, it does active versus inactive based on somewhat arbitrary settings. For example, I'm very fit, so it wants my heart rate to be, well, above 120 to be considered active. I really have to exercise pretty hard. If I'm exercising really crazily on the treadmill or on an exercise bicycle, maybe it goes up to 129, so take that with a grain of salt. So it does keep track of that for you. And it also has a step meter. How many steps have I walked? Notice a little bit of lag there, more than a little bit of lag. That's what I mean about that TI OMAP 3. Sometimes, yeah, it's like that. So that's how many steps that I've walked. And then it also likes to show me my most recent heart rate. And I can choose to have that on or off. Again, it's laggy just a little bit behind me right there. I've got a daily step goal. It does a fairly good job compared to some smartwatches I've seen. It's not accidentally fooled by doing things like, say, knitting. You know, if you're doing this all the time, because a lot of these base it on the motion of your hands to track steps. So that there is reasonably accurate. It's not exactly a full-featured fitness system, shall we say, but at least it works. How do I get to Starbucks? And there we have driving directions depending on which one that I pick. And what's going to happen here is it's going to use the phone for navigation. There is no GPS inside this. It's going to use Google Maps on the phone. There is no speaker, so it won't give you spoken directions. However, since your phone has to be within 30 feet of the watch, there's a good chance that you're going to hear your phone speaking the directions. So that kind of saves the day there. So on screen, it gave us the next direction step. If you swipe sideways, you can see how far away it is. Of course, there's a Starbucks close by. You can choose your travel mode. Maybe you'd rather be bicycling or walking. That would be nice and fit. So let's go back to driving. And we can exit navigation, which we will in this case. Okay, Google. Play Martin Simpson. And on my phone, even though I have a whole lot of Martin Simpson, it actually is trying to get me to buy some Martin Simpson that, well, I already own. So there it is. I'm sure they'll get the music integration better at some point. I think you can see why I'm not finding this to be the most fulfilling experience. After spending $250 on a watch, you shouldn't have to work all that hard all the time, should you? Now, if you just want your watch to give you the time to show you upcoming meetings, your latest text message, your latest email, that sort of thing, because you tend to miss those things, you don't hear your phone ringing, you're a busy guy or gal and you're running around and your phone's in your pocket for a reason because you can't pull it out, then it does that job just fine. But beyond that, it is a work in progress. So that's the Moto 360 smartwatch. It's available now. It's still pretty hard to find, and as you can tell, I still think smartwatches aren't quite ready for prime time. At least the Moto 360 is one of the more attractive watches on the block, and we hope Android Wear, well, it advances and becomes more useful. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.